This is Korea News for March 8, 2022. On the 8th, the day before the presidential election, the number of new coronavirus cases reached 200,000. The Central Quarantine Countermeasures Headquarters announced that as of midnight on the same day, there were 202,721 new confirmed cases, bringing the total to 4,869,691. Controversy has arisen when it became known that the ballot box that had already been voted in was stored in the office of the Secretary General, which was covered by CCTV. According to the People's Strength Buchan City Council and the Party Cooperative Committee on the 7th, it was confirmed that the Buchan City Election Commission kept the pre-voting mail outside the jurisdiction in an office covered by CCTV. The mail is a postal envelope containing ballot papers that voters in the Buchan area outside the district marked during the early voting for the 20th presidential election on the 4th and 5th. The CCTV lens in the Secretary's office was covered with paper, making it impossible to shoot. This situation was confirmed by the People's Power Buchan City Council members when they went to ask for the prevention of recurrence in relation to the problem of poor voting management that arose during the advance voting for Corona-19 confirmed cases. Rep. Kwok Na-kyung emphasized, it is illegal to leave out of office voting mail for a long time in a place where objective monitoring is impossible, so we requested a correction immediately. The Buchan City Election Commission said, the office of the Secretary General was used as a place to check the number of pre-voting mail outside the district, and it was left for a while before it was put into the postal ballot box. It was explained to the effect that CCTV in the temporary storage area is not obligatory. Roh Jong-hee, chairman of the National Election Commission, remained silent on the controversy over the early voting on the 8th. On the way to work at the Central Election Commission in Gwacheon, Gyeonggi Province, around 9 a.m. that day, Chairman Roh did not answer a reporter's question about a position of apology as the public chaos continues due to early voting. Then, he went into the office with no answer to questions about the position on the report that there was an internal opinion regarding the appointment of the proxy, but it was ignored, and the position on the storage of the advance ballot box inside the office of the General Secretary of the National Election Commission. Chairman Roh is scheduled to hold a public discourse titled A Word to the People in the press room of the Gwacheon Government Complex at 12 o'clock noon on the same day. At the noon address, Chairman Roh is expected to apologize for the controversy over the poor management of the pre-voting, but there is no plan to answer questions with reporters after the talk. Earlier, in a press release on the 7th, the National Election Commission issued a statement in the joint name of a member of the National Election Commission, saying, "We apologize to the public for causing confusion due to insufficient management of advance voting." However, there was no apology from Chairman Roh. As the controversy over the lack of advance voting for confirmed and quarantined people is spreading, there are different interpretations of whether to recognize the problematic ballot papers that have already been distributed and are causing further confusion at the scene. According to the National Election Commission on the 7th, if a voter receives a ballot that has already been cast, in principle, the ballot received by the voter becomes invalid. Place the ballot paper in the ballot box and mark it as open vote, and when the ballot is counted, it will be added to the invalid ballot. On the 5th, there was a case in which ballots that had already been cast for a specific candidate were distributed to voters at the time of early voting for confirmed and quarantined persons. In the case of confirmed and quarantined persons, they do not put their ballots directly into the ballot box, but instead move them to the ballot box, and the Election Commission is of the view that a problem occurred in this process. At the polling place at the community center in Sinsawon-dong, Yunpyeonggu, Seoul, there was a commotion about distributing voted papers for Lee Jae-myung, the Democratic Party candidate. According to the principle, it should be marked as open vote and added to the invalid vote, but it was treated as a valid vote according to the judgment of the voting official. The Election Commission's position is that if the ballot papers are made public regardless of the will of the voters who have marked them, they may be treated as valid votes at the discretion of the polling officer at each polling place. For this reason, some have invalidated the public ballot papers, while others have no principle of validating them. At polling stations, such as Mangkon-won-dong, Sasaeonggu, Daegu, the ballot papers delivered to voters were invalidated. An official from the Election Commission said, in principle, the ballot papers that were originally published are to be treated as invalid. On the other hand, it was found that if a confirmed or quarantined person at the time of early voting followed the identification process but returned home without receiving a ballot, he or she could not participate in the main voting day on the 9th. According to the National Election Commission, if the identity verification process is followed, a ballot is issued and the relevant information is recorded on the National Election Commission's integrated list system, and is treated virtually identically to those who have already voted. As a result, it is difficult for confirmed and quarantined persons who return to cold or other conditions while waiting outside the building after undergoing the identification process on the 5th to receive voting rights. It was later revealed that the Anti-Corruption and Civil Rights Commission recognized former Gyeonggi-do civil servant A as a public interest reporter who exposed suspicions of misappropriation of corporate cards by Kim Hye-kyung, wife of Democratic Party presidential candidate Lee Jae-myung. However, in the process, A and A's lawyers were not notified of the recognition of the public interest whistleblower, and when Mr. A publicly protested on Twitter, "Why don't you recognize it as a public interest whistleblower? Has been recognized," he said. The Anti-Corruption and Civil Rights Commission even distributed a press release to the media within a week during the time of Song Eun-cho, who exposed suspicions about the opposition. Earlier, in February, after reporting to the media allegations of misappropriation of corporate card by Kim Hye-kyung, the wife of Democratic Party candidate Lee Jae-myung, in February, Mr. A felt threatened by the successive calls from his aides. Among those who contacted Mr. A, there were not only Ms. B, a grade 5 civil servant who sent the errands herself, but also those who were convicted of being involved in a case of organized violence in the past. Public interest whistleblowers may receive personal security from the police for a certain period of time, or may accompany the police when attending and returning home as a witness or witness. Residential patrols and other personal protection are also available. Russia has designated South Korea as an unfriendly country. As a result, various sanctions from Russia are expected, and domestic companies that do business with Russia, such as Samsung Electronics, LG Electronics, and Hyundai Motors, are expected to be hit. The Russian government has included South Korea in this list by announcing a list of countries and regions that have taken unfriendly actions against itself, its businesses, and Russians through a government decree on the 7th. The list also includes the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, Japan, the 27 EU member states, Canada, New Zealand, Norway, Singapore, Taiwan, and Ukraine. It is expected that various sanctions, including diplomatic restrictions, will be imposed on countries on the list of non-friendly countries. As Russia's invasion of Ukraine shows signs of prolongation, the domestic financial market is rapidly freezing, with the $1 exchange rate exceeding 1,221 on the morning of the 7th, and the stock market plummeting by about 2%. On the morning of this day, in the Seoul foreign exchange market, the $1 exchange rate exceeded 1,221 during the day and traded at 1,225 won. It is the first time in 1 year and 9 months since June 9, 2020 that the $1 exchange rate has crossed the 1,220 range. The stock market is also experiencing a sharp decline as foreigners and institutions sold 270 billion won and 220 billion won worth of stocks within 30 minutes of the market opening, respectively. The Kospi index plunged 2% to the 2,657 level due to foreign investors' departure from the domestic stock market due to damaged investment sentiment, and the Kodak index also fell more than 1%, trading at the 886 level. Investor sentiment is rapidly shrinking on the news that the Russian military has taken control of Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the largest in Europe. In particular, the fact that international oil price broke the $130/barrel level and reached the highest level in 13 years and 8 months since July 2008 is also affecting risk aversion. As the price of raw materials continues to rise due to the rise in international oil prices, the currency values of major raw material importing countries, including Korea, are declining. The $1 exchange rate has been under upward pressure ever since it surpassed 1,201 on the 24th of last month, when Russia invaded Ukraine. In the market, the possibility of the $1 exchange rate soaring to 1,251 in the short term is also mentioned. According to a survey, wage workers in Korea retire at the average age of 49.3, and nearly half of them involuntarily retire early before retirement age. As a result of analyzing the data of the Economically Active Population Survey by Statistics Korea, the average age of retirement for the main job among those aged 55 to 64 as of last year was 49.3 years, and the average length of service at the time of retirement was 12.8 years. The average retirement age has been around 49 for the past 10 years, far below the legal retirement age of 60. When looking at the reasons for retirement of wage workers, only 9.6% of them had retired. On the other hand, 41.3% were involuntary early retirements, such as recommended resignation, honorary retirement, and layoffs, 15.6%, business slump or shutdown, 16.0%, and leave or closure of business, 9.7%. Although the proportion of retirement age has been decreasing over the past 7 years, the proportion of involuntary early retirement has risen, the center explained, adding that the need to prepare for early retirement has increased. The age at which consumption expenditure exceeds earned income, which is the age at which the life cycle deficit transitions, has risen from 56 in 2010 to 60 in 2019. This means that real retirement has been delayed by continuing economic activities in alternative jobs after retirement. The average real retirement age at exiting the labor market was 72.3 years in 2018. This is the highest among OECD countries of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and is higher than Japan's 70.8 years old, a super-aged society. The leader of the idol group Children of the Empire, Moon Junyoung, was caught driving a car while intoxicated by the police. The Gangnam police station in Seoul booked Moon on the 7th on charges of drunk driving under the Road Traffic Act. Moon is accused of driving a car in a drunken state on a road in Sinsadong, Gangnam-gu, at 1:46 a.m. the previous day. At that time, Moon was driving in the reverse direction on a one-way road and had an argument with the driver of a vehicle coming from the opposite side, and it is known that the driver suspected of drunk driving after smelling alcohol reported him to the police. As a result of a breathalyzer test by the police who arrived at the scene, it was confirmed that the blood alcohol concentration level corresponding to the revocation of the license was obtained from Mr. The police said, after identifying Moon's identity, "We plan to call him later and investigate the details of the incident." Thank you for watching today. Please like and subscribe.